It's a little bit like we've had a two-horse Conestoga that has been marching across the prairie to get us to where we are. And these two horses are ready to be loosed. They're ready to be unhitched, let them run their own path, run their own race. They'll be able to cover more ground, do more good for more of Indiana than they could continuing to be hitched.
He's talking about IUPUI, the 50-plus year urban college collaboration between Indiana and Purdue universities in Indianapolis, taking a new direction.
Indiana University is such a powerhouse in the life sciences, medicine, and dentistry. At Purdue, we're a powerhouse in biomedical engineering. It is like chocolate and peanut butter begging to be a Reese's.
IU and Purdue embarking on a new journey. They'll become separate campuses in Indianapolis this fall, but still joined at the hip in many ways. Get to know the man making things happen for the new Purdue University in Indianapolis, Dan Hasler, my guest on the Business and Beyond podcast presented by PNC. Hello and welcome to the Business and Beyond podcast presented by PNC. I'm Gary Dick. Big changes coming this fall at IUPUI, the urban campus that has anchored the west side of downtown Indianapolis for more than half a century. IU and Purdue will become separate academic institutions, IU Indianapolis and Purdue University in Indianapolis. Dan Hasler is the go-to on the Boilermaker side of the transformation. He's the COO of Purdue University in Indianapolis with an impressive resume. 30-plus years as an executive at Eli Lilly and Company. He served as Indiana Secretary of Commerce under Governor Mitch Daniels and has spent the past 11 years in various roles at Purdue. And I'm pleased to be joined on the podcast this week by Dan Hasler, the Chief Operating Officer at Purdue University in Indianapolis, a brand new entity, actually officially becomes that July 1. Dan, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Gary. Appreciate it.
You are a busy guy. We'll talk a little bit about your background later. Longtime executive at Lilly, former Secretary of Commerce, held senior roles at Purdue University as well. But this new role for an initiative, I think the potential that this has, the split up, if you will, of IUPUI creating an Indiana University and separately a Purdue University in Indianapolis, I think has enormous potential for the Indiana economy in so many ways. To tee things up, I know former President Mitch Daniels has talked about this as being perhaps certainly one of the most important initiatives in Purdue's history. Explain to people who may not know or be aware why this is so important.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, Gary, honestly, personally, I thought I would be well retired by now. But when I heard about the split of IUPUI and the potentially transformational journey that could be for Purdue and Central Indiana, I kind of had to raise my hand up again and say, Coach, let me play.
Yeah.
The history of IUPUI is probably worth noting first. Then Mayor Lugar had the brainchild of establishing an urban campus. We didn't really have a large public university urban campus in Indianapolis. And so literally over 50 years ago, IUPUI was formed, combining IU curriculum and Purdue curriculum. And in those 50 years, tens of thousands of graduates have come into Central Indiana and, of course, all of the world. And I just want to acknowledge, but for the hard work of that faculty, the administration, the chancellors over the years, and the many graduates who have come into Indiana, we wouldn't be in a position to be able to do this, right? But in one fell swoop, we're able to basically unhitch a wagon. The analogy I give people is it's a little bit like we've had a two-horse Conestoga that has been marching across the prairie to get us to where we are. And these two horses are ready to be loosed. They're ready to be unhitched, let them run their own path, run their own race. They'll be able to cover more ground, do more good for more of Indiana than they could continuing to be hitched. There are really 5 reasons why this makes so much sense for Purdue and I think Central Indiana. And all these reasons were articulated by many, many business and civic leaders. It was really the business leaders that initiated this. The first reason is attraction, Gary. We have about 80,000 students that apply for Purdue every year for about 9,600 spots. that number would be larger, but for the fact that a lot of students really want the Purdue curriculum and rigor, but they're looking for more urban setting.
Mm-hmm.
By having this option, it gives us the chance to do that. The second is experience. Students and business both want students to have experiences while they're in their 4 or 5 year degree. Why? They learn better. And 2, corporations and not-for-profits get a chance to introduce themselves to them and meet these students while they're there. We think by having more students have an experience with Central Indiana companies while they're in school, it's going to be harder for them to leave when graduation time comes. They'll be sticky. They'll not just be leaving a campus, they'll be leaving relationships with companies. And we really want to impact our ability to hold this talent in Indiana at graduation time. We think it's going to be easier to do more collaborative research with Central Indiana companies, which is the bread and butter at Purdue. And finally, economic development. You know, what I have loved as Secretary of Commerce to be able to bring a company to the corner of West Street and Michigan and show them to the south a crimson and cream IU and a black and gold Purdue, it would roll their socks up and down. Mm-hmm. And I think it's going to play big for us in the future.
Yeah. Can you give us, you mentioned the business community being an important part of this whole idea. Any insights or background on how this all came about? How long has it really seriously been talked about? And what were some of those discussions?
Well, first of all, back in my Secretary of Commerce days, right? And every Secretary of Commerce since then knows that every time we bring a company in, the first part of the discussion is show me your talent pipeline. Mm-hmm. Then you show them place, then you show them incentives. Then the last question is, okay, show me again your talent pipeline. If you can't answer those 2 questions very, very well, you're not going to get the business. You're not going to move to Indiana. They're not going to want to stay. The call for this has been growing, from my awareness, basically the last 10 years or so. And the timing just wasn't right. You know, Mitch was interested in this some time ago. And again, the timing really wasn't right until Mitch, Mung, and President Whitten got together and said, you know, for the good of the community and for the good of both these universities, maybe now is the time to make this move. So it really was kind of over 10 years with a lot of desire, a lot of pressure, a lot of encouragement from the business community, but really those 3 folks getting together and saying, let's get this done.
Yeah, Dan, talk about the model and what Purdue University in Indianapolis will look like, because I know it is being viewed by Purdue as an extension of the West Lafayette campus. So very much a part of that campus that happens to be in Indianapolis.
It's a really important point, Gary, and thanks for letting me talk about it. It is a very big difference between how Indianapolis is set up and virtually every other Indiana University or Purdue campus in the state. We want this to be completely seamless with West Lafayette. It literally is the south end of the hard tech corridor. So we view West Lafayette through LEAP in the hard tech corridor to our Indianapolis campus as a real hotspot. Consider Indianapolis and West Lafayette as 2 ends of the wormhole. Faculty are the same. The curriculum is the same. The application process and the standards are the same. And the reason we want that is we want it to be completely transferable. If a West Lafayette student wants to come to Indianapolis for a semester to work and get an urban experience, they're not changing classes, they're not changing faculty, they're not changing curriculum, they're not changing degree. It's completely seamless. If they want to come for a year, that's possible. If they want to come for 4 years, that's possible. You'll see faculty moving back and forth very freely. You'll be seeing a transit system that's bringing people back and forth literally on the hour, because again, it basically brings the full power today of Purdue University into downtown Indianapolis.
You mentioned the hard tech corridor that Mung Chiang, president of Purdue University, has certainly talked a lot about. It's something that sounds like it's kind of an idea down the road, but this is something that's happening and as we speak. Talk about that and what that can become. You mentioned the LEAP Innovation District in Lebanon, Eli Lilly and Company, largest investment or project in the company's history underway there. Other companies will locate there, being a part of that, but that connection between downtown Indianapolis and West Lafayette and this hard tech corridor.
Well, first of all, from my alma mater, what's happening with Eli Lilly today is absolutely unbelievable. I'm so proud. We all should be so proud of what they're doing and the medicines they're bringing to the people and to the country and to the world. But what's really happening before our eyes with LEAP is the ability to set this corridor up into a really innovation stream, innovation platform like we've never seen before. And the proximity, not only between these two universities, we think is going to be very important. Also, keep in mind the amount of internet fiber passing right through there as well opens up all kinds of opportunities for high-speed computing, quantum computing in the future. So lots and lots of opportunity there for us, we think, and we really want to be taking advantage of it.
As you look at, and you mentioned this, but the impact on economic development, to talk a little bit more about that and how you see that unfolding, 2, 3, 4 years down the road as this really gains traction.
Well, we are in hot competition with lots of states, right? All the states are upping their game. Indiana has always had an incredibly favorable environment for business. And the governors, Mitch and beyond, have all supported that and all helped to make that so. But again, our hard spot, our difficult area to talk about has always been show me your college graduate talent and, frankly, technical talent and certifiable talent in Indiana and around. That's always the beginning of the discussion and the end of the discussion. If we can demonstrate that we're here to make connections between these students, whether high school graduates or university graduates or 2-year college graduates with these companies, and partner with them to keep this talent in Indiana for their purposes, it only has to up our game. Indiana is a great place to live. It's a great place to raise a family. It's a great place to start and grow a business.
Are there any other university systems or setups around the country that this is modeled after, or have you looked at to kind of model after it all?
We've looked at obviously we've benchmarked lots of different universities, and the Cornell system in New York is an interesting one. We've actually looked at UCLA as they have begun to urbanize more and actually buy buildings in the city to incorporate. And I think what we've learned most, while this is different, we're basically separating two working entities. We're not starting from scratch. What we've learned is we don't want this campus to be an ivory tower. We don't want it to have a bubble over it. We want students and faculty to literally not know where this campus ends and where the city begins. We want to have this campus, the 28 acres on the corner of Michigan and West, to be the beating heart of Purdue, but we want Purdue to marble into the city so these students can actually do their learning in the places where people are doing the work.
I think the numbers now, I think I read there currently, or most recently, about 5,100 Purdue students in Indianapolis. 86% stay in the state of Indiana. As you look at this new model, can you give us an idea of how much larger that picture might be?
We think we've got the wherewithal to grow this to upwards of 10,000 students between the properties that we're leasing in the area that we have to build on. And again, we think a big reason the retention in Indiana for these students is higher is because they've seen Central Indiana and they've had the opportunities to work with and collaborate with employers before they graduate. It's so much harder to leave a relationship than it is to leave a place. Yeah. And what we want to have happen is more relationships between these students from West Lafayette and Indianapolis with companies before they graduate. It's like a D1 college coach, right? I mean, they don't start recruiting their best players the semester before they graduate high school. Right. They're recruiting freshman and sophomore year. And that's what this gives businesses in Indiana an opportunity to do.
And talk about, I've got to believe that the business community, especially businesses in the heart of downtown Indianapolis and close by, have got to be pretty excited about this. What are those businesses saying about this, and how do they view this?
They've all been wildly supportive. I spend a lot of my time sharing with them what we're doing and asking for help. My ask when I speak to all these businesses is we've guaranteed that a student that comes to the Indianapolis campus will have a relationship with an employer, either as a co-op or an internship. We have guaranteed that, right? So when I share with businesses, you ask for it, it's coming. Now, what I need from you is 5 spots where you'll take interns and co-ops for these students in their junior year. Mm-hmm. And I'll sign them up on the spot. And they're all wildly excited to support in that way. That's the most important thing that Central Indiana companies can do for not just Purdue, but for IU in terms of keeping these students in Indiana.
And just when you look at the vibrancy of downtown Indianapolis, there are a lot of projects that are underway right now. The Elanco campus, the Indy 11 stadium project, new hotels, New Circle Center, ultimately. So a lot of things happening downtown, adding this collegiate, this college element, I would think might add to that vibrancy of downtown Indy.
I think it's going to bring a lot of energy, a lot of students, and a lot of diversity from all over the country and the world, people into the city that are going to want to take advantage of all of these amenities. One that you didn't mention, though, Gary, that is actually really important to me is 16 Tech, right? One of the things that we love to do at Purdue and West Lafayette is build discovery parks, build aerospace parks, places for our collaborating companies to live. But it always starts with a relationship. If you look at Discovery Park and Aerospace Park, those companies are there not because they needed to build a building in Tippecanoe County. They're there because they had a relationship with Purdue with its faculty and students. And to take advantage of that relationship, they needed to build a home. We think 16 Tech can and will be that same sort of space for us in Indianapolis. So I tell people all the time, if 16 Tech weren't there, we'd be begging for it. Also, the site that Elanco's building on has a lot of very interesting potential landing spots for companies that I'd like to help bring to Indianapolis. It's an unbelievable area right across the river from in New Indy 11 Park. I mean, you look out the building, the Elanco's building, and you see this beautiful campus of Indy 11. You see Lucas. You know, it's an amazing picture getting drawn as we speak.
Quick question before we go to the break. IU and Purdue obviously separate. Are there scenarios where IU and Purdue will collaborate and work together?
Absolutely. Actually, I think you're going to see more collaboration opportunities happen between Purdue and Indiana as a result of this. And well, it should. I mean, Indiana University is such a powerhouse in the life sciences, medicine, and dentistry. You know, at Purdue, we're a powerhouse in biomedical engineering. It is like chocolate and peanut butter begging to be a Reese's cup, right? Yeah. And that's one of the areas we're really going to double down on pretty quickly.
All right. Well, much more ahead with Dan Hasler, the Chief Operating Officer at Purdue University in Indianapolis, when the Business and Beyond podcast returns.
At PNC Bank, we're committed to making a difference in the lives of our customers and communities by helping them move forward financially. As a Main Street bank, we try to do right by our customers with every encounter. Our local teams offer personalized financial advice to help guide you in making the best decision. We're proud to be part of your community. PNC Bank. See how we can make a difference for you at pnc.com. Copyright 2022, the PNC Financial Services Group, Inc., all rights reserved.
And welcome back to the Business and Beyond podcast. We're presented by PNC. And my guest this week is a very busy guy, Dan Hasler. He's the Chief Operating Officer at Purdue University in Indianapolis. Purdue and Indiana universities splitting from what was IUPUI. I guess, Dan, officially July 1? Is that the official start date for this new model?
July 1 is the start date, and the fall after that will be the first class of Purdue University students coming into the campus.
Well, you touched on 16 Tech before the break, and I think that's an important part. That development, which now very much is coming to life on the near northwest side of downtown Indianapolis, had been talked about for many years. I think maybe 4 mayoral administrations, and people wondered if it would ever happen. It's definitely happening now. And as you mentioned, you feel that 16 Tech is an important part. It's connected to the whole IU medical complex and the campus there. How important is that 16 Tech element to what we're talking about here in this new model?
Well, you know, it's funny how things come around. We actually established 16 Tech when I was Secretary of Commerce.
Okay, yeah.
And so, you know, it's had a tough 10 or 12 years, right?
Yeah.
I mean, things have been a little slower than anyone would like. First of all, I think Emily Kruger is a fantastic leader. I think she's done an amazing job. She's an evangelist for the place, and she's a joy to have as a partner.
Yeah.
But again, what it needs and what it's lacked is the relationships that would cause a company to want to move in, right? It's one thing to have a real estate development play. It's a whole other thing to have a relationship play. And one of the reasons we have Discovery Park around us in West Lafayette was because these companies that we are in a relationship with wanted to be near physically. We think that the relationships that we'll be bringing in Indianapolis will want a place to live eventually. And it's a perfect place for them, right? Especially as they build the bridge across the river there. The ability to move back and forth is going to be much eased. It's close.
Yeah, and this gets to this whole really one of the key factors around 16 Tech is talent attraction, and that can certainly do that. You mentioned your time as Secretary of Commerce. I think it was 2011. You began your role as Secretary of Commerce. Talk about that, because I very much remember doing many interviews and stories with you on a variety of deals that you were involved with and bringing to the state of Indiana. Talk about your time as Secretary of Commerce, because that came on the heels of I think 3 decades at Eli Lilly and Company in senior positions there. Why did you decide to take that Secretary of Commerce position?
Well, honestly, I never really had a chance to do any service, right? I wasn't in the military, Secretary of Commerce compared to the military is a whole other thing. It was really my first opportunity to be able to give something back. And the opportunity arose. I love business. And what I realized was I'd spent 3 decades in and out of Indiana. But to me, Indiana, working with Eli Lilly and Company, was basically my ride home to Meridian Hills.
Yep.
An airport. I really knew very little about Indiana. And what was magical for me about this was my job was to get to know Indiana commerce and get to know what Indiana could draw and sell Indiana to other companies. So getting to know Indiana for that time was unbelievable for me. The kinds of companies and the business people and the diversity of that business in Indiana is just magical. Mm-hmm. So for me, it was like I've been living with these people for years and didn't know they were here. And it was just really fun that way.
What surprised you in getting to know the state? As you said, you worked here, you lived here, but you're busy doing your thing. It kind of opened your eyes, I imagine, to what existed around the state of Indiana.
There are so many ways to make a living, and so many ways to go about it, and so many small businesses and companies that really are our backbone. We talk a lot about the big companies, but it's really the 20 and under employee companies and the family companies that drive the majority of our state and our state's economy. But to see the diversity of what people were doing, I'll never forget as long as I live. One that's always in my memory was a woman and her family in southern Indiana that were making soap out of goat's milk. I went down to visit, and it was amazing to watch. She had a small piece of ground and 5 goats, and her children would milk the goats before they went to school. And I said, this is amazing, but we need to scale this. I mean, we're going to kill these goats. Everybody wants soap, and you need more goats.
Yeah.
So to watch her then scale that up into something was amazing. And you just see example after example like that all through Indiana.
Talk about your perspective on the state current day. I mean, you look at projects, things going on around Indiana, some of them that were percolating when you were Secretary of Commerce. And I look at River Ridge Commerce Center. We were down there not long ago for the Meta data center announcement in that part of the state, the South Shore rail line up in Northwest Indiana, the expansion and the double tracking, these generational projects that are now happening. What's your assessment of kind of where Indiana is from an economic development standpoint?
It's always getting tougher. All the states are raising their game all the time, and we cannot for a second take a breath and believe that we've got it won and kind of continue to ride. Brad Chambers and the secretaries before him, I think, have done a fabulous job. And not just in terms of presenting what Indiana is, but doing some placemaking in Indiana that gives people a painting of Camelot, right? Here's something that you're really going to want a piece of, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. We still have to answer the talent question at the beginning and the talent question at the end. And so while the placemaking and the imagineering of what these places are and could be are really, really important and a part of the picture, but we've got to stay doubled down on talent development and talent retention.
What's your take on the READY grants? Because that's a unique, I think, initiative here in Indiana. $500 million. Lilly Endowment threw another, I think, $250 million in this time around. But communities, regions around the state are just crazy about this thing because they can get money, leverage it locally, and do things that otherwise they wouldn't be able to do.
To me, the most valuable part of that whole process, Gary, in addition to just the money and the ability to do things, was it gave regions a reason to collaborate together.
Right.
Yeah. In my time as Secretary of Commerce, it was basically mayor after mayor after mayor operating separately and independently. What this has done is basically put a reason for multiple mayors, multiple counties, multiple cities to say, look, we play above our weight if we play together. And now they're doing that. And I think that's going to help these economic watersheds across the state in a way that they just weren't able to do before.
What, in your view, is the biggest challenge, the biggest hurdle facing Indiana? Because to me, as I look at things happening around the state, you look at things like the designation for a hydrogen hub and the three designations that the federal government gave out. Indiana got all three. And so there are these advanced industries and advanced sectors of the economy that Indiana seems to be very competitive in. What's going to keep Indiana, or what does Indiana need to address to make those things come through?
STEM training K through 12. One of the reasons that we're having trouble with tech talent in general is we're not getting enough of them ready in junior high and high school to be able to withstand and take on the rigors of STEM training at Purdue or any of the elite universities. And so general population, getting them ready and early and excited about technology careers and the kind of disciplines they need to understand before they even think about applying for a university, hopefully in Indiana. It always, Gary, goes back to the talent pool and talent base. And when you look at graduate attainment in Indiana, we've always lagged, and we've got to beat this.
All right, final question here, Dan. We are in almost in March as we're taping this podcast. What are folks going to see here in the coming months as the reality of Purdue University in Indianapolis takes shape?
We're excited to be coming to the final markings on our master plan for the 28 acres. We're hopeful that by summer or fall, you'll see a groundbreaking for the first building on that campus. Somewhere along West and Michigan, it will be the Academic Success Building. It will be the beating heart for our new campus on those 28 acres. So that'll be the first visual thing you'll see from a bricks and mortar. But before then, you're going to see lots of opportunities for companies to collaborate through various co-op and internship programs that Purdue already offers. And so I'm speaking to a lot of companies through their organizations or otherwise to bring West Lafayette students down in bigger numbers for those opportunities, even before the bricks and mortar start to land on the ground.
Yeah, and you mentioned building on that the 28 acres there in downtown Indianapolis, but and I think this has been talked about before. The potential ultimately exists for physical structures in other parts of the city, right?
Absolutely, and you'll see that also happening. We've already taken space, for example, on Mass Avenue with High Alpha, and we'll be bringing our Daniels School executive education programs there. We think that's a neat place where executives are going to want to go to on weekends or after work to get their MBA or at least certifications. And you'll see other things like that happen throughout the city pretty quickly.
Dan Hasler, the Chief Operating Officer at Purdue University in Indianapolis. Dan, you've been such a contributor to the state in your business career at Eli Lilly and Company, and certainly your roles as Secretary of Commerce and now at Purdue. Appreciate you taking the time and appreciate your service to Indiana as well. Thanks for joining me.
It's nothing but pure joy, Gary. Thanks for having me.
Great. Look forward to our next conversation. That's Dan Hasler, the Chief Operating Officer at Purdue University in Indianapolis. Thank you for joining us on this edition of the Business and Beyond podcast, presented by PNC. We are a weekly conversation with achievers in business, sports, entertainment, and beyond. And you can download all of our episodes and get Indiana business news 24/7. All you have to do is go to InsideIndianaBusiness.com. I'm Gary Dick. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.